Happy Bionicle Day, everyone! I'm Nuva. You might know me from that one video essay I did 2 years ago, or more likely, from what I'm going to be talking to you about today, which is Biological Chronicle and some big updates coming out today. For those who aren't familiar, Biological Chronicle is my complete compilation of the entire Bionicle story. That's all the, books, story serials, podcasts, etc. All of the comics that cover story material that isn't covered elsewhere, all in one place. Let's go over some of the updates. Number 1, over 100 small fixes, things like typos, spacing issues, punctuation errors. A bunch of issues with those have been fixed. Thanks to those of you that reported some of these issues to me. A lot of these were found by me, but also a number of them were found by readers, and I really appreciate it when people let me know when they find things like that. If you want details on those, you can go to the hub page for Biological Chronicle, and if you scroll to the bottom, there's a change log with details on all of those little changes. Number 2, books 8 and 9, those that contain the 2008 and 2009/10 story, respectively, have been slightly rearranged. Some of the story chapters have been moved around a little bit to improve the reading experience and flow. Number 3, the complete versions of Biological Chronicle. This is a nomenclature that has, I think, confused people. There's a standard recommended version of the story compilation and a complete version that includes extra material that isn't really recommended, but is there for the people that really, really want it. So what I've done is I have slightly tweaked the labeling on those. Those are now referred to as optional extras rather than the complete version, just to make clear that you're not missing out on anything significant by reading the standard version. Everything additional is purely optional. Number 4, the document author for all of the PDFs of Biological Chronicle has been updated to say Greg Farshty et al. This is a small thing, but I wanted to do it just to give, proper author credit for these. It had my name on it previously just because that's what, Microsoft Word defaults to, but wanted that to be the appropriate credit. And on a similar note, the credits pages for each book have been updated. Previously, the credits page was the same across every single volume of Biological Chronicle and just listed every single contributor to Bionicle as a whole, which isn't actually super helpful. So now each volume has its own specific credits page. The story team credits remain the same over every volume just because it's hard to give specific credit to the creators of the story for which parts of the story they specifically had the most influence on. But as for the writers and artists and that kind of thing, they are now specifically credited for the books that they contributed to. Number, 5? More comic pages have been added. This is just a few in a couple key places in books 7, 8, and 9. These are not comic pages that you would not understand the story without, but they're big moments, big pages that sort of add some weight, some gravitas to some big moments in the story, and I think help contribute to the reading experience of these moments. Number 6, I got a new scanner, and it is worlds better than my old scanner. Most of the comics contained in Biological Chronicle were digitally sourced, but for those that could not be obtained that way, physical copies had to be manually scanned, and the same thing for the young reader books. Copies of those had to be manually scanned for this. Everything that was a manual scan has been redone, and they look much better. Here's a side-by-side comparison of just what some of these look like before and after the new scans. I think they look fantastic now. And on a side note, huge thanks to Chip Wiseman. She helped me with some of the image edits for these comics that I was not skilled enough to handle on my own. So big thanks to her. Alright, I think we're at item 7, but I'm playing a little fast and loose with these numbers. Previously, pages that contained things like comics in Biological Chronicle, pages that were just a big image, had white bars either at the sides or at the top and bottom because every page of the document was the same size. So if the comic page was not exactly 8.5 by 11, you'd end up with white empty space around it. That has been fixed. Every page that is just an image has now been resized to match the size of the image, the aspect ratio of it. So no more excess white space. 2-page spreads now get to be the actual width of 2 pages so that they aren't shrunk down and you can really appreciate them. Oh, also, another comic one. We'll call this number 8. This is a fun one. Using original comic art where it's been available, I have removed extraneous text from the comic pages. So there are places where there were little things like text boxes in the comics that I had blocked out because all they say are things like, read this other book or watch this movie to understand what happened, but obviously presented in this format where all the story's in one place. You don't need that. You don't need a cross-sell. You already know what happened because you're reading it all compiled in one place in order. But they looked kind of ugly before because I had just blacked them out. Now, wherever possible, those boxes have just been removed and you just get to see the art that was behind them rather than having to have those unnecessary bits of text there. Number 9. Still on the note of images and comic pages and stuff like that. This is one that took me a long time. All images in Biological Chronicle now have handwritten alt text. So now, if you hover over any image in the compilation, or if you're using a screen reader, if you're someone who has impaired sight and uses a screen reader, there is now actually written text in the alt text for every comic page, for example, that describes everything that is happening in that image. It gives all the dialogue, all the events taking place, everything, a full rundown of the contents of that page, rather than the previous auto-generated alt text, which would say things like, contains a picture containing indoor comma cake, which I still don't know what that means. Alright, number... what are we at, 10? Let's say 10. A couple cutscenes from Mnog that were linked in Biological Chronicle, specifically a couple cutscenes from Lake Horo. I was informed that there are 2 versions of these cutscenes, one including Taipu and one without, depending on whether you tell him to come with you to Lake Horo or not. Well, the written version of Mnog used in Biological Chronicle describes Taipu being present, but the cutscenes that I had used did not have him there. So I've re-recorded those cutscenes with the Taipu present version, so now you can see that extra content in those cutscenes of Taipu being involved. Okay, number 11. This is a big one. Get excited. There are now media links to clips from the Bionicle movies in Biological Chronicle. So, even though the story material is covered already because the movies had novelizations which have been included in Biological Chronicle from the start, if you prefer to watch the movies and the scenes from the movies, there are now links within the PDFs and on the website that will show what text they correspond to, and you scan or click the link and it'll take you straight to a clip of the movie that covers that same portion of the story. Additionally, I've added a media link for Matus's Revenge, the bonus material short included on the Legend Reborn DVD, and for a trimmed down version of the Motonui saga, which was included in text form in Book 9, but now you can see the visuals for it and hear the audio narration that there was for the original website release of it. Number 12. I know that a lot of people reading Bionicle for the first time don't necessarily have a familiarity with what all of the sets looked like. Maybe they didn't grow up with Bionicle, maybe they only grew up with a few of them, maybe they just don't have a good memory of what all of those characters looked like. And while the story will give general descriptions of characters, oftentimes the story assumes that you know what all of the sets look like. Like, it may give you a visual description for a character that it doesn't expect you to necessarily be familiar with their appearance, but anyone that was being mass marketed as like a major retail set, the story kind of assumes you know their appearance. So, to account for that, throughout Biological Chronicle, there are now character guides. These don't have long written bios or anything, but these are simply visual guides that lay out for you what each character looks like. It's just their official art with their name. Now, this isn't every single character's canon appearance that has one. I didn't want this to just turn into an encyclopedia, but it's every character that was released as a set or that otherwise the reader would be expected to have a visual for. So say characters from some form of visual media. There's technically a couple exceptions to this rule, but generally that's the rule I went with for who gets to have a visual in a character guide. These are grouped by category, and they show up in whatever location seems proper for where the reader should be given a visual for this character, right? So in cases where a character shows up early in the story, or it's not, say, a spoiler to know they exist or that they look like this, they'll often have their character guide images shown at the top of the book at the beginning. But in some situations, maybe a character goes through some kind of transformation or change or comes back unexpectedly. Those visuals have been placed such that they will not spoil that transformation or that return or whatever of that character. Number 13. A lot of you have probably been waiting a while to hear this because the polls were back in June, but as a lot of you probably know, we held polls to determine the final new titles for the individual volumes of Biological Chronicle. Those polls concluded after 2 rounds. Round 1 was pretty tight for some of the titles for first and second place, but round 2 not only got more votes with over 130 people casting a vote, thanks to everyone that did, but there were very clear first place victors for every book in round 2. So I feel 100% confident to say that the final book titles are Book 1, The Coming of the Toa. Book 2, What Lurks Below. Book 3, The Mask of Light. Book 4, City of Legends. Book 5, Web of Shadows. Book 6, Island of Doom. Book 7, Sea of Darkness. Book 8, Ignition. And Book 9, Journey's End. So I hope everyone likes the new titles. I know I like them, and I'm excited to finally have titles chosen by the community. I think that's a great thing, that the community was able to have input on this and decide what they wanted each year to be known as. Forgetting the numbers again, let's say 14. Biological Chronicle now has book covers. Big thanks to Dusty S, who created these beautiful cover designs. They provided me with the files necessary so that I could update the titles on them once the polls had been run. But yes, every volume of Biological Chronicle, every book, now has its own very nice cover based on the design of the Bionicle chapter books. And to go with these, I have made rear covers for every book. So every book has a rear cover as well. These are also to match the front covers based on the design of the original Bionicle chapter books, and have text on the back copied from those Bionicle chapter books. So, with those many updates out of the way, I have something important I need to share with all of you, which is this will be the final content update for Biological Chronicle. After this, I'm not adding anything else, I'm not changing the contents, I'm not rearranging things. If you find a typo or something, some kind of error, something like that, please still submit it to me and I'll look into trying to get it fixed. But in terms of major changes, content updates, additions, this is it. This is the final state of Biological Chronicle that it will exist in from here on. Now, the exciting part of that, with no more big edits coming, I can finally fulfill a promise that I've been making to a number of you that have asked me about this over the past few years, and release alternate formats. So that is my next big goal. I am working hard on getting ebook formats and a print format version designed for those who want to print their own physical bound copy of this. I'm working hard on getting all those done. But once those are done, that will be it for Biological Chronicle. It will remain up online, of course, for everyone to read, but it will be in its final state. It will be completely finished. When I started this project, almost 4 years ago now, in 2017. I did not think I would still be working on it in 2021, 4 years later. But a big part of the reason I've been doing that is thanks to so much help and feedback from the community, and this thing is so much bigger and better than I ever envisioned it would be when I first set out to make it. So, thanks so much to everyone that has supported this project. I hope you all enjoy all of the new updates, and look forward to the new formats coming hopefully pretty soon. And that's it. Everyone have a great Bionicle day, and thanks for tuning in. Bye.